Welcome to Plato's Republic. In this short video, we're just going to be looking at the very beginning of Book 1. We're going to introduce the basic elements of the story and to learn who the characters are and who's talking and what in the world's going on, how to follow it. And I'm going to read a little bit of it to you. So here we go. So we're starting on page 2, but that's not the number that I want you to pay attention to. I want you to pay attention to the number in the margin. So it actually starts with 327. Why does it start with 327? Well, these are called the Stephanus numbers, and these go all the way through all of the works of Plato. And if you do Plato scholarship, this would take you from the earliest of Plato's dialogues all the way through the latest. And so when I say we're going to read from, starting at 507 or something, these are the numbers that I'm going to be talking about, not the page numbers, but the margin number. So if I say, turn to 328b, so you'd find 328 in the margin and go down to B, right? Well, let's start right from the very beginning. Almost the entire thing is dialogue, but we get a paragraph or and a half, maybe, of exposition at the beginning, and it's told in first person from the point of view of Socrates. And anytime a character says, I said, well, that's Socrates talking. I went down to the Piraeus yesterday with Glaucon, the son of Ariston. I wanted to say a prayer to the goddess, and I was also curious to see how they would manage the festival since they were holding it for the first time. This goes on, and we're talking about what the setting is here. Then some people come up from behind. Polemarchus saw us from a distance as we were setting off for home and told his slave to run and ask us to wait for him. The slave caught hold of my cloak from behind. Polemarchus wants you to wait, he said. I turned around and asked where Polemarchus was. He's coming up behind you, he said. Please wait for him. And Glaucon replied, all right, we will. Just then Polemarchus caught up with us. Adeimantus, Glaucon's brother, was with him, and so was Niceteris, the son of Nicias, and some others, all of whom were apparently on their way from the procession. Polemarchus said to me, it looks to me, Socrates, as if you two are starting off for Athens. It looks the way it is, then, I said. Do you see how many we are? He said. I do. Well, you must either prove stronger than we are, or you will have to stay here. Isn't there another alternative, namely that we persuade you to let us go? But could you persuade us if we won't listen? Certainly not, Glaucon said. Well, we won't listen. You'd better make up your mind to that. All right. What in the world's going on? It seems like they're being accosted and threatened. But no, they're all friends. It's sort of like if you're jumped by some friends on campus after a night of being out at the bars. It looks like you're heading back to the dorms. Well, looks the way it is then. Well, we're not going to let you do that. We're all heading back to this guy's house, and we're not going to let you go. You're going to have to fight us off if that's not what you want to do. All right. Well, we'll give in then. That's the spirit of what's going on here. Well, let me move down to 328b. So we went to Polemarchus's house, and there we found Lysias and Euthydemus, the brother of Polemarchus, Thrasymachus of Chalcedon, and lots of other folks there. Polemarchus's father, Cephalus, was also there, and I thought he looked quite old, as I hadn't seen him for some time. He was sitting on a sort of cushioned chair with a wreath on his head, as he had been offering a sacrifice in the courtyard. There was a circle of chairs, and we sat down by him. As soon as he saw me, Cephalus welcomed me and said, Socrates, you don't come down to the Piraeus to see us as often as you should. If it were still easy for me to walk to town, you wouldn't have to come here. We'd come to you. But as it is, you ought to come here more often. For you should know that as the physical pleasures wither away, my desire for conversation and its pleasures grows. So do as I say. Stay with these young men now, but come regularly to see us, just as you would to friends or relatives. Cephalus is an old man. He is Polemarchus's father, and they are at their home. This is the home owned by Cephalus and Polemarchus, where all of the action is going to take place. Um, Cephalus is a good natured old man and someone that Socrates respects. Indeed, Cephalus, I enjoy talking with the very old. That sounds like an insult, but it's not. It's quite a compliment, I think, that Socrates is giving him. I enjoy talking with the very old, for we should ask them, as we might ask those who have traveled a road we too will probably have to follow. What kind of road is it? Whether rough and difficult or smooth and easy? And I'll gladly find out from you what you think about this, as you have reached the point in life the poets call the threshold of old age. Is it a difficult time? What is your report about it? By God, Socrates, I'll tell you exactly what I think. A number of us who are more or less the same age often get together in accordance with the old saying. There's a footnote there. You can see that the reference to the footnote, and please feel free to pay attention to those footnotes throughout. When we meet, the majority complain about the lost pleasures they remember from their youth, those of sex, drinking parties, feasts, and the other things that go along with them. And they get angry as if they had been deprived of important things and had lived well then, but are now hardly living at all. Some others moan about the abuse heaped on old people by their relatives, and because of this, they repeat over and over that, that old age is the cause of many evils. But I don't think they blame the real cause, Socrates, for if old age were really the cause, I should have suffered in the same way, and so should everyone else of my age. But as it is, I've met some who don't feel like that in the least. Indeed, I was once present when someone asked the poet Sophocles, how are you as far as sex goes, Sophocles? Can you still make love with a woman? Quiet, man, the poet replied. I am very glad to escape from all of that, like a slave who has escaped from a savage and tyrannical master. I thought at the time that he was right, and I still do, for old age brings peace and freedom from all such things. When the appetites relax and cease to importune us, everything Sophocles said comes to pass, and we escape from many mad masters. In these matters and in those concerning relatives, the real cause, isn't old age, Socrates, but the way people live. If they are moderate and contented, old age too is only moderately onerous. If they aren't, both old age and youth are hard to bear. Well, let's stop here for a moment. Yeah, this is a party, but you can tell, you know, Socrates is always going to turn his attention to conversations of this sort, and more more interesting, more deep philosophical conversations. And I think Cephalus really has a lot to say on the subject. This continues for another page or so, but let's head over to 330D. It certainly is, but tell me something else. What's the greatest good you've received from being very wealthy? What I have to say probably wouldn't persuade most people. But you know, Socrates, that when someone thinks his end is near, he becomes very frightened and concerned about things he didn't fear before. It's then that the story we're told about Hades, about how people who've been unjust here must pay the penalty there. Stories he used to make fun of, twist his soul this way and that for fear they're true. And whether because of the weakness of old age or because he is now closer to what happens in Hades and has a clearer view of it, or whatever it is, he is filled with foreboding and fear, and he examines himself to see whether he has been unjust to anyone. If he finds many injustices in his life, he awakes from sleep in terror as children do, and lives in anticipation of bad things to come. But someone who knows he hasn't been unjust has sweet good hope as his constant companion, a nurse to his old age, as Pindar says. For he puts it charmingly, Socrates, when he says that someone who lives a just and pious life, sweet hope is in his heart, nurse and companion to his age, hope, captain of the ever twisting minds of mortal men. This goes on, and then finally, Socrates asks, another paragraph down, he says, all right, a fine sentiment, Cephalus. But speaking of this very thing, namely justice, are we to say unconditionally that it is speaking the truth and paying whatever debts one has incurred? This is important. This is very, very important. All of Plato's dialogues are centrally about one question. They might be about the question, what is knowledge? What is truth? What is love? What is beauty? This book, The Republic, is about the question, what is justice? And Socrates has just asked that central question. What is justice? He's asked Cephalus, what is justice? More in the next video.